But before we begin, massive shout out to my sponsor, Instant Gaming. If you guys are looking for some really cheap games and want to support the channel in the process, then check out the link in the description for more details. Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another video. As some of you remember a while back on the channel, I've done extensive coverage of Recon Wildlands. Despite its flaws and mixed reviews, I had an absolute blast with the game. I would even go as far and say it was a very underrated game in my opinion. Sure, you can say it was like an arcadey Armor clone, but I still think it was a really fun sandbox to explore and immerse yourself in. With that being said, today I wanted to discuss the possibility of a sequel and a potential release of Recon Wildlands 2. With over 3.1 million copies sold and 10 million registered players, almost 2 years since the release of the original game, you'd think if a sequel were to happen, we might be hearing about it very soon and potentially at this year's E3. So today I kind of just wanted to discuss my ideas for the game, where they should improve, what things they did well about the first one. So I think let's begin by talking about the things they've done right in the original game in my opinion. First, the open world. I think they have absolutely killed it with the map design. The size of the world, the different biomes, regions, and locations were absolutely fantastic. I felt like no matter where I was, I could fully immerse myself in the environment. No matter if it was exploring the snowy mountain regions, fighting in the deserts, or traversing the dense jungles of Bolivia. Every region felt unique and offered different gameplay styles. In my opinion, for Wildlands 2, they should keep the map size the same as the original game. I don't think there's any point of expanding the map constantly, making the biggest map ever made, so I think the size of the original map was pretty much perfect in my opinion. But this time simply expand the cities and urban areas for more combat opportunities in those regions. With the city expansions, I think they should also focus on more densely populating those areas with NPCs as well as enemies, making them feel more alive and interesting, because I feel like that was one of the main issues with the original game. There was more enemies than actual NPCs doing their day-to-day activities, so expanding on that would be greatly appreciated so you can immerse yourself even more in some of the possible big city locations in the next game. Another very positive thing about the first game was all the different weapon options and the overall player customization. One thing that was missing was some sort of a rocket launcher to deal with vehicles in the game. It was kind of strange that the only way we had to deal with helicopters and APCs were machine guns and grenades. So for Wildlands 2, more specialist heavier weapons would be a nice touch. Having a proper rocket launcher as well as something like, let's say, a portable mortar to shell a base that you're about to liberate would be a nice addition to the game. Sure, you can call the artillery strike, which was an option, but I feel like it would be just more immersive for the player to actually be able to either control the artillery, control some heavier weapons, that sort of stuff. And most importantly, I think just adding jets to the game. Just imagine being able to fly in a jet, bomb a base, and then assault it afterwards. I think that would be pretty amazing. Now let's talk about where the game definitely would need some improvement. The vehicle variety in the first game was quite disappointing. I understand that the whole theme of the game was Ghost. I mean, it is a Recon game after all. But I think heavy vehicles such as tanks, more helicopter variety, including transport helicopters, would be a nice addition. And also, as I said earlier, just having jets in the game, all different types of planes, attack planes, bomber planes, any of that sort of stuff would be so amazing to see in the game, and proper military bases to go along with that. I think that would be absolutely incredible. And that would actually go very nicely with the addition of the heavier weapons that I mentioned earlier. Also, the ability to deploy flares and helicopters. I think we can all agree that the lack of helicopter flares in the original game was a weird design choice, especially when you consider the amount of AA guns in the higher tier areas of the map. Another thing that was lacking in the base game was the mission design. I felt like the original game had very basic missions. Good thing about the missions was that you could approach them in whatever way you want. Have it be stealth or go guns blazing, and you also could complete them in any order you choose. That I feel like should very much be still the focus for the sequel. Just have the open design for everything. Let the player decide how they want to approach the base, if they want to scout it out first, if they want to approach it stealthily, maybe use an attack helicopter or any sort of vehicles. call in reinforcements, any of that sort of stuff. I still think they should have the player freedom, basically have the kind of sandbox element of the game. I know a lot of people kind of want Wildlands and Ghost Recon to just go back to the roots and be more kind of scripted and linear, but I do like the sandbox elements. I feel like it just adds a lot more replayability to the game. And an idea that I had, just imagine breaching mechanics similar to Rainbow Six Siege in a Wildlands game. I mean, they did experiment with something like that in one of the operations, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched if it became a core mechanic to the mission design. But with all that being said, I think the biggest change would have to come to the multiplayer component of the game. I felt like Ghost War came a little too late and felt very uninspired. It felt like Ubisoft was riding off of the success of Rainbow Six Siege, so they just shoved Siege-styled operators into a 4v4 PvP mode. First of all, the lack of Ghost mode at launch was a big mistake. By the time the mode came out, most of the players were done with the game. The mode itself was very basic, and the maps for the game of that scale just felt very small. For Wildlands 2, my ideal PvP mode would be something on a larger scale. Let's say there's 4 teams of 4 on quite a large chunk of the map, with vehicles, enemy NPCs, civilians dotted around. You'd have some basic classes to choose from the beginning of the game, and the main goal would be to eliminate all other teams and be the last one standing. However, you would also have side missions that you can complete during each match. Let's say one of those missions would be to extract intel from a military base which is populated with enemy NPCs. It would work kind of similar to a dark zone in The Division, where once you get the intel, you have the option to extract it from the match for extra rewards and weapons. Obviously, the extraction would take some time and other players would be alerted to your rough location. So that way, it would kind of keep the combat flowing. It would be kind of a risk and reward type of thing, but I think it would just really spice up the gameplay. And that way, you're able to secure rewards even if you don't end up being the last squad alive. Obviously, if you end up winning the game, you would get much bigger rewards. They would be much better, maybe higher rarity, something along those lines. But that way, for somebody that maybe isn't very good at PvP, they could still end up getting some loot and still have a fun interaction in the PvP world. Obviously, we can speculate more as to what this could end up being, but I feel like with the original game, they have a very solid foundation to stand on. One thing I hate to see if they decided to make this more into an RPG like they kind of have been doing with more Ubisoft titles. If they make the enemies bullet spongy, I think that would kind of kill my enjoyment of the game. One of the big appeals of the original game was how quickly you could dispatch of enemies. It just felt very believable. That sniper bullet to the head or the upper chest would bring that enemy down instead of you having to constantly fire at that enemy, basically alerting the entire outposts. But anyway guys, let me know what you think of the idea of Wildlands 2. Obviously, we could speculate more about the details and features, but let me know in the comments one thing you'd like to see in Wildlands 2, and maybe if we get enough cool ideas, I could make a follow-up video discussing some of them in more detail. But anyway guys, that is gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Like I said earlier, check out my sponsor Instant Gaming. The link to that is going to be in the description if you guys want to pick up some cheap games and support the channel in the process. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you're gonna have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye. Bye.